Emma and her friends in Grace Fieldhouse go from living in a normal orphanage life to learning that they are being farmed for food. And yet somehow Emma still ends up being one of the most positive and joy-filled protagonists of all time. Is she really that strong, or is she just plain old dumb? Well, let's find out. Good morning, nerds. I'm Nathan, your nerd pastor here at Checkpoint Church, and we are so glad that you are back with us once again. This week, we are starting a new week, a new word, this time, joy. And we are so glad that you're here with us to talk about what joy could possibly be. If this is your first video, thank you so much for clicking and finding out more. If this is your 11th video, then thank you for sticking around with us for these past 3 weeks. We so appreciate you joining us in this Advent of the Nerd series. With that, let's just dig into this scripture. Today we are going to be reading from one of the epistles of Paul, or letters, known as 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 8 through 10. As always, I'll be reading from the NRSV. If you have a translation you prefer, feel free to use that one, but the NRSV will be on screen. 3 times I appealed to the Lord about this, that it would leave me. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. So I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong." Emma is one of our 3 main protagonists from the Promised Neverland alongside Ray and Norman. These 3, along with the other orphans, have grown up in a place called the Grace Fieldhouse for years and years. They take this test every single day that measures their skill level, and sometimes they end up getting adopted or sent back into town or whatever. You know, they don't really ask a lot of questions, and maybe they should have. Regardless of how skilled they are, all of them graduate around 12 years of age. One day, whenever one of the orphans graduates, she accidentally leaves behind a stuffed bunny, and Emma and Norman decide to be good citizens and brothers and sisters and take this stuffed animal back to the orphan. Whenever they go to find her, however, they don't find her alive. They kind of find her corpse. And they learn the truth that they're actually being raised as farmed humans for these horrible, monstrous creatures that they call demons. Logically, Emma and Norman agree that they have to escape from this place. Emma says that she wants to get all of the other children free as well. Norman, who is a natural-born leader, kind of goes into escape mode and says there is no way that we can save everyone. However, Emma stands her ground and will not be swayed. She says, "I'm not leaving unless everyone leaves." One of the best parts of Emma is her uncanny ability to be positive and joyful in the midst of every scenario, even truly the most dire. This adventure takes a lot of wild turns, and they meet one roadblock after another. But Emma never really loses her will or her joy. Where does this joy come from? And what can we do to get it? First, let's look at our scripture. So Paul is talking about his failed trip to Corinth. See, Paul had this great trip to Corinth. He started this awesome church and everything was good. Then he gets this letter from the church in Corinth that we don't get to read, and he writes back with 1 Corinthians, kind of gently nudging them in the right direction. Then Paul gets another letter in between 1 and 2 Corinthians that we don't get to read, in which things really hit the fan. So Paul writes 2 Corinthians again, letting them know, hey, daddy's coming home. He's going to straighten this out because y'all done messed up. So 2 Corinthians has a lot of chastising and a lot of redirection. It also has a whole lot of self-loathing on the part of Paul, seeing this as a failure. Right before we pick up in our passage in 2 Corinthians, Paul is describing this thorn in his flesh. And he says that this thorn keeps him humble and reminds him of his weaknesses. Then he leads on to the infamous phrase that's in this scripture, that my grace, being Jesus' grace, is sufficient for you. Normally this phrase is applied in a really shallow and cheeky way, something along the lines of, you don't have to worry about anything, or God just does everything for a reason, all of those kind of tropisms that we fall into. People look at this text and they see Paul in pain and they say, well, this is how we should be in pain. They look at this idea of a thorn in the flesh and just ask themselves, well, what's my thorn? I'm not so sure that's exactly what Paul is getting at here. What I see in this passage of Paul, I don't see him so much in self-loathing and failure. More I see him moving forward. See, Paul kind of acknowledges to a certain extent that he kind of sees himself as being righteous and worthy of spreading this gospel. While we don't exactly get it from the scriptures, it's possible that maybe he was a little headstrong. Maybe he left the people of Corinth a little early. Maybe he didn't equip them enough. Regardless of what it is, we don't get to be privy to what that thorn in Paul's flesh might be. But what we do see are Paul's actions. See, in verse 14, Paul says this, "Now I am ready to visit you for the third time, and I will not be a burden to you, because what I want is not your possessions, but you." See, at the end of it all these weaknesses, distractions, thorns, whatever, there's one thing that keeps Paul moving forward and motivating him in his work. This is the grace of Christ, which he's talking about, that propels him forward. This is the grace that is sufficient. It's the people, the community. He doesn't want their possessions. He doesn't want their praise. He just wants them. So back to Emma. Why is she able to keep such a sturdy front? Why does she push above and beyond every single challenge every single time? It comes down to where you're rooted and where you're focused. Norman is focused on protecting Emma and himself. He wants to make sure that the important people get out. Ray is focused on getting himself out and saving his own skin. Emma, however, is focused on protecting everyone, despite herself. Emma takes herself out of the equation and finds the root that she's seeking in the community that she serves. The joy that's most profound in our life, that makes the deepest impact, is that which is found in community. Joy in community is the joy that doesn't dwell in the past or in the weakness or in the thorn. It doesn't matter what Paul's thorn is, because he's moving forward. The reality of Emma and this human farm doesn't matter, because Emma's moving forward. It's a joy that leans on others or on itself whenever it doesn't have anyone else to lean on. And so the wider spread the community that you have, the more support for that joy you have. As the manga illustrates, it is the only way to possibly overcome being on a human farm. It's the only way for everyone to be free, is to have this kind of joy and faith and trust in this place of community. The harsh truth of this manga is that Norman and Ray would have left the young kids behind. But joy in the community isn't negotiable. Emma is not going to budge, and there was no budging Paul. Paul didn't actually see the Church of Corinth as a failure. He just saw it as something that he needed to return to. And so, if I might be so bold, maybe I would encourage you to consider joining our community here at Checkpoint Church. We really are better together, and we want to be a source for you to lean on, to lean into, and to trust. I promise we will not leave you behind if we ever find out that we're all secretly on a human farm. Like that could ever happen. Right? Thank you so much for watching this video. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your day and joining us on this Advent series as we continue in the week of joy. If you're looking for what to do next, might I encourage you to check out the prayer down in the description if you are the praying type, and the guidebook, which is also in the description if you are the journaling type, and the Discord down in the description if you are the community type. We would love to have you join and be a part of this thing that we're doing here at Checkpoint. I did also want to let you know this is kind of a crazy week for me and my family, so probably not going to be streaming on Twitch or anything like that. I'll let you know when you know, but don't expect anything scheduled aside from these Monday through Friday videos. With that, let's get Emma up on this tree. Thank you again so much for watching this video. I cannot wait to see you all hopefully tomorrow, same time, same place, as we talk about our next wonderful hero. Who's it going to be? Find out. Till next time, folks. Bye-bye.